Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys for joining tonight. Um, really fun night tonight. And tonight's topic, we are going to be discussing production or productivity, just how to get stuff done. Hi, Alexa. How you doing? Good to have you join us. With Blake and Justin on here. Thank you too. Coach Seiko's on here. So thank you guys for joining this evening. Again, tonight we'll be chatting and discussing productivity and production. So that is just how do we get things done, right? How do we accomplish tasks? How do we make big gains in everything that we're doing? All of you on here, if you guys are taking the time, thank you guys for taking out the time this evening to join us. And if you are, then you guys have tons of goals, tons of dreams, tons of aspirations on achieving stuff. There's a lot of other things that you guys could be doing with your evening tonight. And you guys decided to hang out with me out here and, learn how to take your guys' golf games and take your guys' lives to the next level. So, if you do have these big goals, big dreams, we'll always talk and, give you guys strategies on how to get them done. Basically, how do you get them done faster and go further down, your performance map here. As we talk about like being productive and getting things done, it's not so much all the to-dos that we have to do, meaning a lot of times we might have a list of things to do and we'll use, all of you are playing golf, so we'll use golf as an example. It's like, I have to go practice golf. So that would be like, what about golf am I practicing? Well, I got to go hit some balls. I got to go hit some drivers. I got to hit some wedges. I got to practice short game, right? It's so generalized. I got to go putting, my short putting. And, going to be like, if you want to be extremely productive, it's not just like itemizing, like go hit drivers or go to the driving range, go hit some wedges because I'm supposed to hit wedges, or my wedges got to be better. It's having outcomes that you have to shoot for, right? It's easy to go and just show up and go hit the balls, go hit the putts, go hit the wedges, go play 9 holes, right? Go play every day. But if you're coming in with like, what's my outcome? And you're looking at, targets and goals as more outcome based, as opposed to my outcome is to get really good. So I have to like spend an hour every day swinging the golf club, spend an hour every day putting, spend an hour a day reading, right? It's why is it that we want to do that, right? So, my outcome today is to hit my wedges on average 5 feet closer to the hole and I'll just make some stuff up here, but hit my wedges 5 feet closer to the hole to 15 feet from 50 yards away and in, as opposed to 20 feet on average, right? So now we have something very specific that you're working towards and something like an outcome that you actually can see, am I getting closer or not? So, definitely having everything become more outcome-based goals, outcome-based tasks, as opposed to like, I just got to show up, I just got to practice golf, I got golf practice today, I got my golf lessons today, and you're kind of just going to see where it goes. It's like, I'm going to my golf lesson because it gets me closer to this specific outcome. I've got my team practice when I get there, I'm going to be spending my time and working on this to get me closer to like this specific outcome. Excuse me. So as you're putting in the time and the effort, you're always in control, not in control, but you're always have a perspective of, which direction you're going, and the direction that you're going is just not necessarily based on just time that you put in. For me, this is probably always, this as always, this is one of my favorite things because I love to achieve things. I love to shoot for any kind of targets, any kind of goals, any kind of dreams, because that gets me excited to like accomplish, big things that I thought weren't possible. And even to look backwards and say like, man, I can't believe like the things that I've done, right? And get excited about that because that gets me more excited to like set, bigger things for the future. And my perspective on it, and everybody here might be a little bit different, but I'll share with you my perspective on being extremely productive. Is I always look at it as, in order for myself or ourselves to accomplish a goal, it's going to take time, right? The time depends on the target that we're hitting. So let's say, for example, I set my goal to shoot 72, and I currently am shooting 75, 76, right? And I want to be able to, shoot 72 on average instead of 75, 76, or 76, 77 on average. And so, I would say like, okay, it's going to take, what would it normally take if I have this kind of time? If I have, 5 days a week where I can invest 2 hours a day and then still play at least one round of golf every single week. I could say, and again, I'm kind of just making up these charts just to give you an idea, but let's say it's going to take me 8 months to move my average from 75 or 76, lower to 72 on average. And so my perspective on that is like, well, if it typically takes 8 months or so, I'm looking at, is there a faster way to get there, right? I'm always looking at, what are other people doing? Can I get there faster? Because if I can get there faster, let's say I can get there in 6 months instead of 8 months, right? And when I say this, it's not like I'm going to shoot even par one time. It's going to be like I'm comfortably shooting even par because I've done it, a number of times already. And let's say I can get there in 6 months with the same kind of same kind of practice schedule and time availability, right? And I'm looking at like, what are other people doing? What ways can I accelerate my path to get, gaining 2 months on the average? And when I look at it that way, it's like, man, if I get there in 6 months, that gets me super excited because how much more could I have accomplished in the next 2 months, right? So from month 7 and 8, maybe that might not be saying I'm going to go 71 or 70, but maybe it's going to put pieces of my game 2 months further ahead than where it would have been. Where if I then have this, target to get under par, it gets me 2 months ahead. But as a process of thinking, I'm always saying, can I save time? Can I add more time? Because if I can get not even more done, if I can get further along the path with less time, it gives me like that extra bonus time to accelerate even more in the same amount of initial plan that I had. Right. And as I'm looking at it that way, it's like a never ending cycle of like, whatever my 1 year goal, can I hit that 1 year goal like sooner? Can I get that like in 10 months? Can I get that in 9 months instead of 12 months? Because if I hit there, then it pushes my next year goal even further out. And I'm always chasing more because, and plus, we work a ton on momentum. As you're getting things faster, as you're making bigger gains in your life, bigger gains in your golf game, it becomes more addicting that, oh, man, I'm getting like just different kinds of strategies, different kinds of advice that makes so much more difference. It's giving me this much more gains. And as you're gaining here, gaining there, and you're constantly like just getting these little wins over and over again, it kind of gobbles up all of the discouraging stuff because all of a sudden we may have rough rounds, right? We never have like this perfectly smooth path that goes up. We may have some rough rounds that didn't go what we expected. But as we take these small little wins over and over again, we hear it all the time, but as we appreciate more of the little wins and like looking for strategy, trying to achieve faster and go further, when we get those tough days that are hard to digest because maybe we're stressed, maybe we got a lot of stuff going on in um, my personal life, my social life, my family. Maybe in school I had bad grades and like we took it in, and we're just not seeing clearly when the results come in. And it allows us, because we've gained so much and we kind of see all this success, to just say like, oh, this is just what happens. It's just a rough day. Days like this happen. I'm going to go ahead and go at it again tomorrow. I can't do anything about what happened today. As easy as that sounds, it's it's a ton of strategy that gets you there. It's a ton of like, what are you doing? You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to think about this whole round that I shot that, didn't make me excited, didn't make me happy, I didn't play good, and just say, oh, don't worry about it, no big deal, right? It's so easy to read in books. It's so easy to hear from other coaches, other players, that just say like, oh, disregard that, those days happen. But unless you have something set in place to like actually get you to move beyond that, it's it's going to keep on cycling in, and it's going to pull you down, which makes your productivity go down. Like as soon as we start going down, where it's like, oh, it's a rough day, and then it's like, these things never happen to me. And then the next day, right, our energy's not up. Oh, I got another rough day. And then all of a sudden we get all these rough days in a row, and a month goes by and you can't believe what just happened and how you could go from, thought I was shooting 75 in like the last month, it's been in the 80s every single time, right? And I hear all the time with people that come in, it's like, I used to be shooting in like the mid 80s, but for some reason, like I don't know what happened over the last year, it's I can't shoot, like every score I shoot is over 100, right? And it's like I continue to play every single week, but I just don't understand, like the ball, like I never hit these shots ever, and they're just always coming out. And a lot of it is just our ability not to let go, because we have, if we're excuse me, if we had one shot in the 80s consistently, or 85 consistently, you have that capability. But if it's not coming out, you're something's going off, and you have to look at what's getting it to continue down that spiral. And all of a sudden, like, you start losing momentum, which then turns into, yeah, I guess I don't practice as much as I want, because it's not fun when you're not hitting the ball well, right? I played only twice this month, or it went from 4 times a week or 4 times a month to just twice a month, or now I just play once a month, right? And we find different ways to fit in things that excite us, and it has nothing to do with, let's say, golf itself. It just comes into our ability to enjoy the game and look beyond it and keep up the schedule and the practice and the excitement that we have, as opposed to like, not as fun anymore, I'm going to put in basketball in there because that's new. Anything that comes in new is going to be a lot more exciting. So basketball is exciting, and then we got, oh, maybe football is exciting, or toss football in there, right? And other things that start to fill into our life, and all of a sudden we're like, man, I don't have time to play golf anymore, but I really want to get better. And I used to be at this level, and I don't understand. I consistently played. It's not like I hung out my golf clubs and never touched it again, but we kind of forget that we lost a little bit of momentum. Other activities that drew our interest kind of filled into the gaps that used to want to be golf. And the frustrating part, right, that makes us say like, oh my gosh, I never would do something like this. I never would hit shots like this. I never, score this high this often. We forget the fact that we're not doing it as much as before. And if you're not doing it at the same level, at the same intensity, the same frequency, right, then all of that whole combination makes your performance go down, right? And it's so frustrating because you remember exactly what you used to do. Like, I can tell you when I was playing in high school and college, when I was able to shoot more consistently in these scores and in events, because I'm playing tournaments more often that time, like I would be like, oh my gosh, I know what it feels like to post these scores. I know what it feels like, and I know to have this kind of control of my ball when like I'm nervous. And like all of a sudden, like it gets frustrating because when I get nervous, like crazy shots come out, right? And I just like in the past, like I don't understand, but you know, the reality is I just don't do it as much, right? I don't play with the same intensity. I don't play with the same stress training, right? So of course, at that same level, I'm not going to perform. But you know, the frustrating part is I know what to do. I know how to do it. I'm just not in that situation, right? And then, you know, scores in like events start getting higher and higher, or whatever, you know, wherever it is that you're at. So, you know, taking those small wins and getting excited about it. And, you know, for me, it's always looking at like, can I achieve like that so much faster and give myself those extra month, extra 2 months, maybe even extra days go a long way, right? If I got two extra, if you all had one extra day above, you know, where you are now, you know, you could do a ton in that extra day, right? And as you kind of do that over time, all of that extra days compound. And if those days are actually weeks that are compounding, then, you know, you hit this level where you just, it's hard to stop all that momentum from continuing to move forward. So as we get into, you know, the specifics, excuse me, as we get into the specifics of, you know, our productivity and how to get productive and how to like achieve it faster, you know, the number one thing that you have to do is you just have to have super clear vision, super clear pictures, super clarity on where it is that you want to go. You know, often we, you know, and it starts with our schedules, right? It starts with like just where you want to be. And most of you in here should already know, you know, at the end of my season, at the end of this year, like this is like the outcome that I'm shooting for. It has to be super specific, right? It has to be tangible, something that you can get. It's not like I just want to have better golf. It's like, I want my golf game to look like this, right? I need it to be at this level of score, 75, 72, you know, under par. You know, I want to be winning championships, but you can't just win championships because there's like a field that's playing. We can't control like everybody playing in the field, but you can then control the targets and outcomes that you're looking for. If I'm wanting to win, my game needs to look like this at this level with the most stress. And you have like this clear picture of this is what my game needs to look like. And you're kind of breaking it all the way down. These are the skills that gets me to that game. I need to be driving like this. I need to be hitting approach shots like this. My ball control in direction needs to be like this narrow versus this wide, or whatever, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, however you're measuring your game. Right. And as we kind of scroll that all the way back down, right, it's how are we planning out your schedules and practices? So that would be like number one, right? Once you have that pretty clear picture, but the clarity gets all the way back, even into like, you might be saying, well, I know my practice schedules and I practice every single week. I always practice on, you know, Wednesday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I play on Saturday, right? You have this every single week. But even if we bring it into a clear picture, like I know when I'm practicing, it's my routine. I practice for 2 hours on Monday, 2.5 hours on Wednesday, 3 hours on Friday. I go play 18 holes on Saturday. Every other Saturday I have an event. It's how clear are you on those objectives, right? And those plans, right? Do you have your practices set out right at for this week? Like this is the outcome at the end of the week that I need to have accomplished, right? In 1 week, what can I get? Right, I need my driving to be at this level, or I need my chipping and putting to be at this level when I'm on the golf course. Or maybe it's a skill thing. Maybe I got to be hitting it solid this percent of the time. So now the practice is driven directly around the outcome that you're getting, right? And if you're not clear on exactly where you want to be, like at the end of the year, where you want to be at the end of the month, where you want to be at the end of the week, like your practices are just a frame of getting yourself and just showing up and just kind of going through the motions and hitting the balls. And, you know, if you're on a routine practice where like when I get there, I warm up the same way. I start off with, 7 irons and I'm kind of loosening up. And then I go to driver and I hit that. and then I hit some wedges and I bounce back to, 7 irons, and then I go back and I have this random practice in there. But if it's the same every day, right, you have to ask yourself, one, what is that doing for like my outcome at the end of the week? If it's doing something very, very specific, I'm doing this sequence over and over again because that is the sequence that's needed to hit my outcome, on Sunday at the end of the week, then you do it. But if you have no idea like why I'm doing this thing, maybe just because I was told to do it, and there's no baselines and no measurements that you're going to say during the week if I have to shift and adjust. And maybe you might think like, I'm just going to like wait this one out and just be disciplined to this. Discipline is good, but discipline without any direction, whether it's getting you closer or further, could be very, very detrimental as well. So beyond just having a routine and just getting the same days, like you have to have weekly outcomes that are super clear. That way, when you come on Monday is going to be, it's going to be short game day where I got to get this outcome on short game, but it's also maintenance for everything else. If it's like a 4-hour day or 3-hour day, right? So it's directed around short game. What does my short game need to look like after Monday? What part of my short game is it my wedges? Is my chipping? Right? Is it my bunkers, right? You have something very specific, but then you also have maintenance, right? My driving and my approach shots, those things that are like in play. And those might be like on a routine, like for me to maintain, I'm always hitting this many drives and I'm checking, is it falling within these gaps, within these windows? Is it going the distance that I want? Am I hitting it as solid as I want? So I'm measuring, even as I'm maintaining, am I keeping the same progression, or is it getting a little bit better? Or, am I hitting it worse in maintenance phase? Or you have to be able to see all of those things and be aware of it, because if you have no direction, right, then we get lost and, a month goes by and then it's like we're in total shock. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. I don't know where my golf game went this quickly. It's because we have no perspective on where we're at on that day. And going on, with our planned schedules and practices, you also have to have like specific intention. I briefly mentioned that or talked about that earlier. Like, it's not just showing up. It's what kind of intention do you have? Like, ask yourself the question, like, if I am maintaining my driving for the day, right? And typically my maintenance of driving is spending 15 minutes hitting driver every single day to kind of keep it up and maintain it and see like little boosts, but it's just not really skill building at that time. It's just making sure like I can focus elsewhere, but keep it going, right? Asking yourself the question, just like, how do I maintain at an extraordinary level, right? It's not just, I want to just maintain. How can I do it at the highest level? How can I do it at a fulfilling level? How can I do it at the most extraordinary level, right? Asking yourself different questions may get you to put different intention just on that maintenance, right? If I'm hitting 30 or 50 minutes of drive just for maintenance, it might be like, well, if I wanted to make this an extremely extraordinary and fulfilling driving session or maintenance session, like what would that look like, right? Ask yourself that question. Is it just me hitting balls and just seeing where it goes? Or is it me being like intentional for that day and saying like, I'm going to hit, 30 tee shots and I'm going to go through my routine every single time to see like when I'm totally focused, what does that look like? And other days it would be like, maybe I had a rough day. My head is spinning and like I've been stressed out, but I got to maintain. I would ask like, how do I do that at a, fulfilling, extraordinary level? And then I might say like, my mind, my head can't take that because it's like too much focus, but I still got to hit these drives. So, this session might just be, I'm going to just hit it as hard as I can, as far as I can, and just see like how wide or how narrow does this go? But I'm still like looking at something intentional, but everything has a very specific intention, right? If you're putting intention at like that extraordinary level, at least if you're thinking about it at that extraordinary level, then you just don't show up and just hit the driver, right? And then maybe it's like the skill building part, right? My wedges need work. I got to get those, 50-yard shots and in to average 15 feet instead of 20, right? How would I do that in this, hour window of practice of wedges at the, world-class level, the extraordinary level, the highest performing level? Like, what do tour players do when they're working on wedges? How do they break these up, right? Super specific intention on not just I'm going to hit, 100 golf balls at 30 yards, 50 yards, 25 yards and go in all these gaps and kind of just say, like, I'm just going to randomize this thing because that's what I heard, right? Or I'm going to just like blast, 100 balls at that one target just because my contact, it just kind of depends, right? Every day you go out, just because it's like wedges or it's driving or it's approach shots or it's putting, right? There's going to be different types of intention that you have for that day. And if you're not aware of that, then, you're just going through those motions, and you're just kind of showing up, this, and actually, I have a piece of paper. I'm going to kind of draw. So I know we kind of went long on this, but I do want to kind of illustrate what this looks like for you. So I think intention in what we do, especially if we know where we want to go, is huge, because we could have such a good vision on like where I want to get to, what I need to accomplish. And if we set the wrong intention, then it sends us down the wrong path, right? And so it might look like this. Hopefully it's not like backwards for you guys. So I'm going to just see. Hey, it's straight. So let's say this is day one. Day one practicing, and since we're talking about wedges, we're just going to say this is wedges. So day one wedges looks like that. Okay. With our intention, we'll go one of two ways, right? We'll go something and this is how this pattern works, as it compounds over time. So if we have day one like this, right, that curve going up means you showed up with specific intention and you wanted to achieve high performance, right? The one that goes downwards just means you showed up to hit the wedges and just kind of blast those balls, right? So that's kind of what it looks like. As you go on to day two, I'm going to put the next few days on here. And I'm going to give you an example of kind of what it might look like. But I'm going to give you the extremes if everything was with really good intention and the other one was just showing up. So I'm writing all the different days. And I'm on day 6. All right. So as you see it going up, we're going to assume that like we went in with intention every single day, versus the curve that goes downwards. It just means we kind of just showed up, right? So our curve and pattern would look something like this. Can you guys see that okay? And if you can see this, we can see that if we showed up with this really good intention, kind of what like a lot of high performers are doing, right? Like the people that achieve the most, right? Show up with intention, goes up. Day 2 looks like this. You can either show up on day 2, just show up and hit the balls, or day 3, like have really, really good strategy and, you know, put the best effort that we can and design effort to get you to day 3. But basically it takes you up this way in 1 week. And then you see, like, if you just showed up, day 2, you just showed up, and it kind of takes that bottom curve, right? And this is just showing you, is it blurry? See, yes, no? Can you guys see? Good, no? So kind of looking at it like that, you can see that, and I'll kind of pan out. So we'll just assume every circle going up this way is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 1, 2, 3, 4. I gotta learn how to count. I missed day 5. But we'll assume this is 7 days going up, but I missed day 5 and I got it down this way. If you kind of went up this path here with really good intention in the practices that you're doing, right, then versus just the person or yourself that just shows up, there's like a huge gap between here, right? And this is just happening over 1 week, right? And after 1 week, if yourself right now just showed up and you ended up here versus you had very, very good intention, high performance intention, world-class intention, extraordinary intention, and you ended up here, like the amount of opportunity loss that fills in this gap is like enormous, right? To look at day 7, how do I catch up to get back to this day 7 is like astronomical and you know, it's huge. So now you take this and you say 1 month out with this same thing. What does that look like? It like gets huge. It goes way up this way. And then your other showing up goes way under, like where you can't see below the screen. But you take that picture and then you go a month and then you think a year. If I just showed up, even if I had like this really, really designed practice where I know every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do it for this. I know when I hit my drivers, I know I hit my wedges, and you're just kind of showing up and going through the motion. And I'm just going to hit it at that target, but with no specific intention on what is the outcome that I need to get out of each specific session, then your map looks like this, right? And if you compound that over the course of 1 year, the gains that you'll see going upwards is not even in the same universe as the person or as yourself that just kind of, you know, shows up and goes through the motions, right? And this is with, if you even have like a really, really good work ethic that you're showing up all the time, right? So just because we're showing up, it doesn't mean we're going to be achieving all of these goals. You have to have these very specific intentions out there in order to make the gains that you want. So when I say, how can you gain days, weeks, months out of targets, like this is how you do it, right? You gain days by setting your intention that way and having super clear goals, super clear targets. Because if you go the just showing up route, that's the one that we get and we hit some goals, and sometimes it's lucky, but a lot of times, you know, I want to be able to get here by the end of the year, by the end of the month, and that end of the month or year shows up and like, man, you know, I got better, but I'm not even close, or I'm 80% of the way there, right? And it all comes from, you know, that one piece of intention that we have. So also, you know, going in just with, you know, our planned out schedules or planned out sessions and practicing is, have you ever, not have you ever, but it's your ability to visualize through the session before you even do it, right? You know, we hear, if you're in golf and you've been doing it for a long time, you hear lots of like mental game stuff and saying like, you got to be super visual. You got to like, excuse me, you have to just think better. And right, there's a science behind a lot of that. But beyond just showing up to your shot and just saying, I'm going to think about a really good shot that I hit in the past, or I'm going to think really good thoughts, like you need to be able to visualize like your day, visualize your session before it's even happened, right? Get yourself in like that mentality that you like, you want to be able to win the game before you even start the game. It's a better analogy. So for instance, how can I say that? For instance, this session that we're having tonight, right, on our production and productivity, right? I've already had this session. So this was like a tool that I learned from by a personal development and business development strategist, Brendan Burchard. And like, he always talks about this all the time. And it wasn't until like I started planning my days and kind of using what he does till like finally like understood like how big of an impact this is, right? It's like I take my notes for like what I want to talk about, right? And like all of these notes for like what I'll talk about for this evening, right? But you know, before my session starts, like I'm not like reading like the notes to see like, oh, I got to talk about this. I have to talk about this. It's actually like going through these notes and like in this section here, planned out schedules and practices. It's going in my head to say like, what stories am I going to share in these planned out story and schedules and practices, right? It might have like, oh, it says clarity, it says intention, it says visualize before like what happens, right? But I'm actually like going over like this conversation in my head, or in this exact process of me sitting down right here, right? I even thought about like visualizing like me explaining how this process works to you guys into the camera, to say like, I've had this presentation right here that I'm sharing with you right now, like before I even had it, right? If it's been going on in my head, and like for this specific one, I didn't have, normally I would have done it earlier, but I did it, you know, earlier tonight, where I spent, you know, a couple hours, bits and pieces of it, but then I kind of put most of it together this evening for the last hour and a half before this. But even finishing up this thing here, normally I would have it done where I can like sit down and go through it longer, but I had enough time where I could go over in my head, like, what is this conversation going to look like? How am I going to be like talking to you guys and actually seeing myself go through like these steps, and sharing with you examples about, you know, how it associates to you guys, right? That way, when I come on here, right, I'll have my notes over here. I can look down at it, but then it allows me to expand and be prepared a lot more than just showing up and like kind of like reading my notes and like reading all these paragraphs, because now I've already gone through this section on planned out schedules and practices. It's right. I've run it in my head, you know, 3 or 4 times of like how the conversation is going to go, how it's going to go. So taking that to your golf games, right? If you know what you're going to be practicing, you plan it out pretty well, you have the clarity, you have like your intention that you're setting before you go in, like spend like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like before you get there, or even when you get there, sitting down to like think, what does this perfect practice look like? If I go through this perfectly, like what does that feel like? What does that look like? What do I have to be doing in order to do it? As opposed to like, I got all this intention and I'm just going to make it happen. Like, attract the path that you probably know already what to do, but we're just not thinking that detailed in what we're going to do, right? See yourself working on your drivers and like what obstacles that are coming out, because when they do come out, you have that plan already that happened in your head and how you overcome them, right? Think about like the great shots that you're going to be hitting as you're practicing driver, to like enforce it. Oh my gosh, I knew I was going to hit it, and you kind of accepted it. It's like, I know I can do it, and you start doing it, right? So start to plan, like, even because you know, start to like visualize. And when I say visualize, like basically like not relive because you haven't done it yet, but like live into the future of like the perfect scenario of what you just planned. And you know, if you don't have the clarity around that, and if you don't have like that specific intention you want to add to that day, then it makes that last step of visualization, like visually seeing like, how is this going to end up? How is my perfect session going to be? It's going to make it impossible because you won't even know like where to start. So those first two pieces are huge. As we, get out of our plan and scheduling, right, we'll go into our, your strategy of like what you're going to be doing, right? We have all different types of strategies that we have out there, meaning you can practice the same thing, right? Working on drivers and working on hooking the driver, drawing the driver to gain like the most distance. And that is like your strategy, right? And then if you look deeper, how is that strategy built in, right? You can have that same strategy that may be from a magazine that says, work on the club face and the path, and you got to swing it in this direction from the inside with the face slightly close to the path, and it creates the draw, right? And you have that strategy. Or, you have another strategy that may be from somebody who really knows your game, right? Somebody like, maybe it's a teammate that helps you all the time. Maybe it's a coach that you work with all the time. Maybe it's a mentor that you're always practicing with, and they know all of your tendencies. And now they take that same strategy and like, well, I understand that your path needs to look like this. Your face needs to look like this, but your tendencies to do that with how you typically swing it are, like this. So the adjustments you have to make to get that is going to be, this way. And it's specifically molded with this, basically it's the same framework and strategy, but it's built around you, right? It's different types of strategy for like the one kind of tool that you're working on. So, it's always asking yourself, like, what strategy do I have? Do I have the strategy of like the 100 shooter that I'm trying to implement and I'm an 80 shooter, right? Do I have the strategy of a 90 shooter, right? I'm just making stuff up right now just to kind of give you like perspective on like what kind of advice you're getting, right? Any kind of advice you have is like really good advice, but how is it shaped into fitting like your type of golf swing, your movements, right? Your practice styles, your personality, your excitement, right? And if you're a 80 shooter, am I getting 90 strategy, right? Or if I'm an 80 shooter, am I getting 70s strategy or 60s or PGA Tour level? Am I getting strategy from the coach that has been doing the same thing for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, right? And found something that works for them and they get tremendous results and they kind of just do that all the time. I'm not saying one way is right or wrong, or am I getting, similar, like same advice, but different strategy from a coach that is constantly searching for best practices and seeing, what the rest of the industry is doing, how it's moving with technology, how other industries are taking in, learning skills, getting, mindset things in other industries and kind of combining it into one. It's always evolving, right? I'm not saying one is better than the other, but one fits one person better than another person, right? So it's knowing, you could get two very, very similar swing techniques with a different strategy behind it, but it fits different people differently. So it's understanding like what strategy are you getting, because you could get, like the type of strategy for somebody that is your caliber only or slightly like less experienced, and that strategy just won't work no matter what happens. And sometimes you just need to find like what is your next level of strategy that you need to be going, even though I have to be hitting the ball further, like the details. I need the ball to be drawing to the left, or maybe for some I need the ball to be fading to the right, for whatever reason, moving one way or the other, right? But what strategy is going to get me there faster, because the type of strategy that you're implementing around the specifics that you may have got in like your practice design is going to be like, it's going to be night and day in the results that you get. and it's going to be night and day in how fast you get there. So, you know, definitely looking at the type of strategy that is in the plan that you have already created. You can take strategy, and I'll give you like a more practical example of like training tools. We could see probably one that you probably all might know is like a putting arc, right? So the things that you see people put on the putting green, and it kind of like shapes, it's curved like this, and it shapes so your putter like glides on the arc, so it gives you like the perfect stroke towards their science behind it. And two different strategies gives you way different results, right? So one strategy would be like, hear from somebody, put your putter on the rail and drag it on the rail so you know what it feels like for your putter to be making the perfect stroke, right? Another strategy is going to be keep your putter like a 1/4 inch off the rail. So if your putter swings crooked, it bangs the rail on the back or it bangs the rail on the front. And the moment you get it where it doesn't bang the rail on either side means you've then learned how to stroke it with that rail, right? I'm not saying one is better than the other, but they're two like very, very different strategies with the same tool. And you can say like practice for 30 minutes on this putting arc, right? And use it, right? One strategy is dragging it on the rail. The other would be 1/4 inch off. If you bang it on the backswing, it's crooked. If you bang it on the through, it's crooked. When you don't bang it, you've designed the stroke, right? So how would that help different people, right? You would take somebody that would be like a very, very experienced golfer that plays a lot. And if you give him, and they're able to practice every single day, and they go putt 30 minutes a day on this rail, and they're playing competition, they're playing, you know, frequently, and you get them to say, drag it on the rail, right? And do that all the time. What you'll find is they get off the rail and their strokes really don't change, right? So then they go back on the rail, drag it on the rail, they come off the rail, strokes don't change, right? So they're not transferring the skill fast enough because they don't get the right feedback. Whereas you give that same person like next level strategy, which would be like something they might use on tour, they don't drag it on the rail, they keep it a 1/4 inch off to learn the stroke faster in the long term. Meaning in the beginning, if their stroke's off, they bang it on the back, they bang it on the front, they're constantly hitting that thing. But the more they do it, they find, oh, that's not it, that's it. That's not it, that's it. And all of a sudden they get it maybe weeks later, months later, but now they don't need the rail anymore other than like the check, right? But you take somebody that just started the game, playing it for the first time, and you give them that next level strategy that maybe tour players are using with that putting arc. And you tell them, okay, keep it a 1/4 inch because, you know, Tiger's doing it like this, or Jordan Spieth's doing it like this, or DJ's doing, whoever might be doing, I don't know who uses that thing, but just for example, if they're using it, put it like the pros. And if you bang it on one side, you know, it means, you know, your stroke's off. You bang it on through, your stroke's off, and keep on going until you can go back and forth. Right? You get somebody that just started the game, they'll get so frustrated like banging that thing over and over, and they don't know that process. They're going to give up. And they're going to frustrate. They'll go through the motions and they'll never get it, right? Whereas like that person might be like, put it on the thing and just drag that thing on the rail and hit balls with that thing so you can see what does a good shot look like, right? If you've never hit a good putt, or you would do something like that to then give yourself the fulfillment of actually hitting the good putt, how it's made, right? So one strategy is not better than the other, but the strategy for the same tool fits two different people, right? You have to know where you're at and what your next level strategy is. I'm not going to say like one is better than the other, but one is definitely going to make tremendous more gains than the other for each of those two different people. As we go in, you know, and next is, you know, once you kind of have that plan and schedule of practices, you kind of have the specific strategy that you're putting into place. It's, you know, maintaining your energy, right? Do you have strategic resets is what it would call. Do you actually plan time in your practices, in your training, to like pause and stop and like get some energy back, get some like momentum back. Because sometimes like if you just go, like if you've ever been at the course and you just say, I'm going to practice for 4 hours today, right? It gets exhausting. And then sometimes you just need a break. And then you say, okay, like I just hit enough golf balls, I got to go sit down, right? The moment you're telling yourself, well, I'm tired and I need a break, that means that break wasn't strategically put in there for your reset, right? You need to have, and for you, once you kind of feel that overwhelm, like, oh man, it's so tired, it's so frustrating, I gotta go sit down, right? Now, all of a sudden, you've waited too long. So now to pull yourself out of that mindset and you know, depression or frustration, whatever that might be, is going to be so much longer than if you like put in these strategic little things for you to just kind of reflect, stop, pause, whatever it is, right? And so, you know, what I mean by strategically putting these like breaks and resets in there is like, do you have a plan of, if I'm going to hit drivers for an hour, do you have a plan of how do I sustain an hour? How do you sustain an hour and not get overwhelmed, right? How do I sustain an hour to get the most out of that 1 hour, right? Is it me hitting like for 10 minutes and building in that break where I stop, I breathe, I take a quick walk, you know, I drink some water to hydrate, right? What are you doing to give you that energy boost in these like blocks of time that you have? Every 10 minutes, is it putting on like a buzzer once it goes? Every 10 minutes, stop. No matter how it feels, it could be on a roll with hitting really good shots, or I could be frustrated. One or the other. It's going to cut you off at 10 minutes. That's my cue to like sit down, breathe, go get some water, take a walk, kind of get my body like stretching and do all sorts of whatever it is to kind of loosen yourself up, like free your mind to just get yourself out of that block. Again, I'm giving you 10 minutes as just an example. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes, but do you have things in place that pull you out strategically out of where you're at? So no matter how it's going, right, you come back entering that same activity more energetic than where you left off, more excited than where you left off, more knowledge from where you left off, giving yourself that time to process, right? If you're just that person that I'm going to, you know, hit and hit and hit till it's over, right? Or maybe you're the person that kind of gets it and like, I'm really disciplined, I'm really dedicated, and I'm struggling on this, and I got to get through this right now. And if I don't get through this right now, I'm you know, it's going to be horrible tomorrow. So I got to just work through it right now, no matter what. There's tons of studies that already show you that if you break and reset, you come back even better than where you were. Even if you're like on a high momentum and like you're on a roll, winning everything in your shots and everything like that, everything's going good. When you break, give yourself that reset, you continue on that same path and you actually accelerate the next session that you go. Sometimes we get caught in the opposite and not, I want to just work through it and break through, and I know I can do this. We get caught in like, I'm hitting it so good, I don't want to stop, right? So, you know, the opposite is true, or the same is true there. Even if you're hitting it really good and you're on this roll, like you have to strategically put these breaks in place and these resets, because you need that time to process like what just happened. You need time to like energize your body, get yourself to drink, get yourself to breathe, get yourself to move. And, you know, tons of studies already shows that like when you come back in, right, the next session becomes faster, right? And then, so if you're looking at like that compounded over time, you know, day after day, week after week, the gains that you make become so much more, you know, astronomical in the end than, you know, what you're trying to achieve just in that present moment. So, you know, for productivity, like make sure you're setting in like these strategic breaks or strategic resets in like in your practice. Like, you know, your body the best, you know what areas frustrate you more, you know what areas that you tend to be really successful, that you kind of keep on going, right? You got to be consistent in that. and build those in. And so, you know, finally, it's once you kind of have all of that in place, right? Those are, you know, just foundational pieces. But the most foundational piece is going to be how consistent are you doing what you're doing, right? Just because you have this master plan on how to think clearly and how to visualize and get all this perfect picture, you know, every single step along the way, you know how to, you know, build the brakes in, and you know how to, you know, exercise, get the energy back, you know how to, you know, have the right strategy. It's that whole process, or in every process that you have, how consistent are you doing the things that you know you're supposed to do and the things that you plan? Just because we know it, right? We might be still going through the motions, but if you're like assessing after each practice, like, this is how my practice went, I have this plan already, right? Taking what we learned tonight, you should be able, you can be able to create like this plan of like all of my targets, all of my goals, how to strategically build in the brakes, what's the right strategy for me. And then looking at all of that and saying, like, at the end of your day, it's like, how much of that was just like how I had planned out prior to do it? Did I visualize it before, right? How consistent am I in every step, right? And maybe at this point, it's a stretch to say, like, if I have this big change, I'm going to be consistent every single day, all the time. But you do want to know, how consistent was I versus yesterday? Am I doing more of it today than yesterday? Am I doing more of it in one area, less of it in another area? You have to know so you can make adjustments every single day. If you know the areas that maybe like the whole visualizing aspect and like living out that practice session or that round of golf before you even went out, you haven't done that in a few weeks, right? And you saw like, oh man, I haven't been consistent at all on that, right? And if you see it, that's like your shift to say, like, I went like 4 days in a row without seeing that, right? That means you have to put intention on, make sure every time I go and practice, right, I'm not just jumping to hit balls. I'm gonna like calm myself down, sit down, and like go through my entire practice in my head and what that perfect practice feels like, what it looks like, all the success, anticipating like what struggles might come out in that thing, right? And then enter it in, right? So you're making these, that's consistency, right? It's not just saying I'm going to show up every single day, or I'm going to show up on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday all the time, right? That's a form of consistency, but how consistent are you with the habits that you have within the practice that you're doing, right? And that will take you like to the next level, right? If you want to hit your targets faster, right, you're going to be looking at those things and seeing how consistent are you, right? And if you don't have yet a journal, right, that you should all have a golf journal that is logging, that has like, what does my practices look like every single time I go out? What does my week look like every single day? And where you can measure at the end of your practice, or maybe you want to do it at the end of like each session, like you maybe hit balls for an hour with short game. You journal in there and say, okay, so this is my plan of what I did. And you spend 5 minutes to then say, how consistent was I? What is the feedback that you're having with that? And journaling would be consistency, right? You know, if we hear that like every single high performing person journals, and you say, well, I journal too. How consistent are you actually journaling? Are you journaling every single day, like what most do? Or are you only journaling when you feel like it, right? When you get good things, you want to celebrate the good things. But maybe when I'm tired, I'm not journaling, right? We're looking at the consistency in that as well, which brings out more things. If every time I'm tired, I don't journal, right? You're looking at that. I'm consistently tired in this area, right? That is one of the roots to what I need to be doing. Because if I can fix the tired issue, then I'll journal, right? Sometimes it's not just saying, even when I'm tired, I'm still going to journal. It's like, why am I tired? Because that's coming up every single time after my round of golf, after my practice, after school, after this. I'm tired and I don't feel like journaling, right? If you don't feel like journaling, you're probably not going to write good stuff. So look at like, why am I tired? Why don't I have time on these days to journal? Or why don't I have time to have these, excuse me, sorry. My alarm went off. right? Why do these pieces, fall into place and consistently happen? Look at those things. Look at the things that are consistently happening great for you. Like, why do I succeed so well in school? It's because, I have these habits that I built in and how to study no matter what. If I know I have a test, I'm making sure I'm prepared like the day before, right? I don't know how your study habits are, but if you're getting really good grades, you have a specific preparation that you do no matter what. If you have finals and midterms, whatever that may be, you have a specific thing that you put into place, and that is the consistent piece that you're doing no matter what, right? So you look at the things that you're super successful at, and from there is where you're building and rebuilding a lot of the things that's going to take you, all the way to where you want to get to. So, going forward is what you want to do going forward is like, if you don't yet have like what we talked about tonight in the clarity in your practice plans and how often and that scheduling part of it. And like, if you're not clear on your intention, if you're not clear on, visualizing all those things, right? You want to have those things in place already. That's like what you need to do. You need to have that one piece in, because without that one piece, none of the other stuff that we talked about, those resets don't really matter if your practice is changing all the time, right? Those resets are strategically put depending on how those practices are. Your strategy and your plan that you have for your practices, right? If your practices aren't consistent, if they are, not going towards a specific clear target outcome, right? It doesn't matter what strategy you have, you won't know if you're getting closer or not. So like, that number one thing is like, plan out your schedule and your practices, and like, what are you doing? What's the outcome? So you can start to build, your ideal practice, so you can then set the intention. You can set, the visual pictures in there, and everything else, right, kind of funnels down. But that's like the number one thing that you guys all should do if you don't yet have that one piece in place. So excuse me, that is our session for this evening. I know we are right at the hour mark, but I did want to get one person on like our hot seat tonight, and we have Caitlin in here, and we have a treat that Caitlin's joining us tonight. So, Caitlin, is it okay if we get you on our little hot seat this evening?
Can I actually pass? Because I'm working on homework at the moment. I'm just listening in.
Got it. Okay. You take care of your homework. No, you're okay. I'll make sure we get you on the next one. Thank you, Caitlin. All right. So we are going to get Blake's on call tonight. We get the pleasure of having Blake. Blake, we're going to have you jump on our little hot seat.
I've also been doing homework this whole time, so.
Got it.
Sorry about that.
Is that our little story for this evening, our homework? Okay. You take care of your homework and you can listen in, okay, and we will get you on the next one. Raise your hand if you don't have homework. Just so you know, I can see you guys in the camera for some of you. All right, Alexa, you're gonna jump in this thing.
Yeah.
And hold on. Alexa, can you hear?
Yeah.
All right, Alexa's gonna jump on this. All right, thank you, Alexa, for for allowing me to volunteer you on this. And we'll run through a little quick session. So this is some of our, well, this is our coaching too. So I want to make sure like it's not just concept that you get, and it's application and how can we implement this in something that you're going through right now. So can you share with us like one thing that's going on like with your golf that you want, that maybe you are hoping and wanting to go faster than what it's currently doing right now?
Probably my drives and getting it high, like getting my driver up in the air.
Okay, so getting your drives up in the air and high, right? So that's something that possibly that you want to go, that you want to go faster, like get there faster, right? So like if we just kind of think, if we look back and think about like what we just discussed over the past hour, and we just go to that first main topic that we talked about, right? And like how well is your planned out schedule and practices?
Probably not that good.
So when you say not that good, like it's hard to measure not that good, right? Because sometimes not that good just means like we're judging ourselves on what it feels like we did. So
Okay.
not that good today
Uh-huh.
may be totally different than not that good tomorrow.
Yeah.
The same feeling and story that you're telling yourself, right? So not that good lasts for months, but you can't measure not that good. Follow?
Yeah.
So for example, so then you would want to get super clear on like your planned out schedule and practices. What do you have down on calendar so far, just in general?
Probably nothing.
So nothing? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So like that would be something that you can measure, right? And I'm not here to make anybody feel bad, but I'm here to sometimes to just let you know, like we have to see like what's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's not that good. Not that good is way different than I don't have a schedule set yet.
Okay.
I don't have a schedule set yet means you still can do it, right? Yeah. And if you write that tonight, right, or if you do that tomorrow, you might still say, it's still not that good. But if you look at like, well, this week planned out, that's a huge accomplishment versus not that good versus not, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to put everything into place, right? But it's looking at like you knowing that, well, I don't have anything down on my calendar right now, gives you very, very little clarity on like the outcome that you're trying to get, right? So the outcome that you're saying here, like your goal and target is you want to get faster. You want to get there faster to be able to hit your driver higher and further. And when we dive into to get more clear on like what is that going to give you if you can hit it higher and further?
What's the word?
Like what will that solve for you?
Higher yardage.
So further yardage, and what does that solve for you?
I guess less shots.
Less shots, and how does that become less shots?
It means passing, right?
I'm asking.
Yeah, passing.
So how does that equate to less shots if you hit it further?
You just wait. What?
So if you hit the ball further, right? So you want to hit it higher.
Yeah.
Further, which then basically you're saying you're hitting your drives further. Hit your drives further. What will that, like, how would that translate into better? Like, and what is better, right? And you said like passing. So passing to you, maybe shooting 36, right?
Yes.
So how would that give you 36? If you
get fewer shots on your like hole, on each hole.
Okay, so it goes into fewer shots in each hole. And how does that give you fewer shots in each hole?
Because you're hitting your first drive further.
Okay, so if it goes further, right? Again, like think, like, how does that equate to a less score for you?
I don't know.
So if right now, if you're hitting it shorter,
Uh-huh.
it equates to higher scores. And
Yeah.
so what scores are you shooting right now?
Like low 40s.
Okay, so if we're in the low 40s
Uh,
and you hitting your drive further gets you that next step closer to shooting 36, how does you hitting it further save you 6 shots or get you close in that ballpark of 6 shots? Like, what does that do to your game?
oh. Well. Oh. I don't know. Like, I just like getting fewer shots, I guess.
Okay, cool. I know. So yes, you're getting fewer shots, but do you know
Yeah.
how that equates into fewer shots?
What?
Do you know how that equates into fewer shots, or why does that cause fewer shots if you hit it further off the tee?
Because you're hitting less shots in between, like less fairway shots, I guess.
Less versus what? So what shot would you replace right now? So if you hit it further, what would that change in your game?
Oh, probably hitting like instead of hitting my like 7-iron, I would be hitting like like my 7-iron, like 8-iron, 9-iron, 7-iron.
Okay, so it would mean you hitting what again?
Let's just say 6-iron.
Okay, so it would get you from hitting 6-iron to what iron?
Mm-hmm.
So is that what you're saying? You're currently hitting like 6-iron.
Yeah.
So if you hit it further, what would that then change the 6-iron into?
Like a 9-iron.
Okay, perfect. So like this would be an example of getting clear on what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know clearly that if I hit this ball, let's say 30 yards further, it's going to turn my 6-iron into a 9-iron. I'll shoot lower because I'm going to get my 9-irons on the green much more, 70% more, 90% more times on the green putting for birdie than my 6-iron. And the ones that are on the green are going to be closer, where my 9-iron might be in the, 20 to 40 foot range, whereas my 6-iron is in the 60-foot or 50-foot range to 30-yard range. Right. So like that's the clarity that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I want to hit driver further because it puts a 9-iron in my hand, which my 9-iron scores me lower because it gets me closer to the hole more often, more frequently.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we know that. And oh man, if I could just get it again 30 yards further, and it may be a big number for some of you, but if it's realistic number for you, that's kind of like if you can hit drives that go 30 yards further than where you're at now, but it's just not consistently, there's like a level to tap into that you can get close there consistently, right? You just have to like put those pieces we talked about earlier in. But if somebody told you and said like, man, if you just get 30 yards more, put that 9-iron in your hand more consistently every time, as opposed to the 6-iron, you're gonna shoot 36 like tomorrow, right? The very moment you can average 30 yards further, you get 36. How much more excited would you be to practice?
A lot more.
And how much more focused would that be in saying, when I get there, my number one outcome is to figure out how I'm going to get 30-yard gains on my driver, like the ones that I hit, and I'm not quite sure it goes that much further than some of the other ones that I hit. So now you're delivering like extremely focused sessions and intention, because every time you get in there for that driver, you're like, what's 30 yards further? Oh, out there's 30 yards further. My ball's landing here. What does it look like to go 30 yards further? Oh, now when I've been hitting, the ball goes this much higher. The ball curves right to left like this. I hit it on this place on the club face to create this specific ball flight, right? And for me to hit that ball flight, oh, maybe I had this drill in here that made me do it, or maybe this training aid in here, right? So now you can start using the training aids that deliberately create the shot that you're doing a little bit more often, right? And then when you do it more often, then you can enter into that visual aspect to say like, oh, before I even hit my driver, let me just spend like 5 minutes like thinking about it, like relaxing for a little bit and like seeing how this next 30-minute driving session is going to be. Like if it went perfectly, this is what my swing looks like, right? This is like the aids that I'm going to be using that I've kind of designed already. This is how many balls I'm going to hit, right? This is how many times I'm taking my break to make sure I'm not getting tired hitting driver after driver, where I build in these breaks where I you know, my limit for me might be, you know, 5 drives before I start getting tired. And I got to build that break in to kind of like stop, walk, relax, drink water, so I get the energy, right? So now you're kind of building everything that we talked about in that session just by that one piece of knowing like how, like what exactly you want and then how you're going to get there. And it's not as far away as you think. It's just like right around the corner, because you can hit those drives that go 30 yards further. You just can't get them consistently. But when you look at the planned out schedule and practice that you have, like one, you don't have any. So then the consistency can't be there, because there's no consistent, like even if you're consistent in practicing every week, there's no consistent intention in the practice that you have. So like, imagine like that picture that we have, like that we showed you earlier, the one that's going up with specific intention, right? And if you're just showing up, you're kind of going down, you're getting forward, right, from where you started, but it's going like on this downwards path. Whereas the one that goes upwards, it's not just faster and takes you further. It's more exciting because you're putting that intention to like this specific practice, and then you've achieved, even if you didn't achieve all of the success, when you're in that intention and mindset, you're picking out like the specific things that you gained and succeeded in that session, which drives momentum and more intention to like day number 3, right? And then you're capturing the intention and the successes in day number 3, which gives you more momentum and more excitement to like day number 4, right? Whereas if we take in, we don't have any plan, that's the days, like even if you're practicing every single week, you're just showing up on day 1, which takes you downwards, right? And when you go downwards with no intention, you're like, you know, I didn't hit it that well. No clarity, and not like it went lower or it sliced or I hit it thin. That's why I didn't go far. It was like, I just didn't hit it that well. Drives you down, right? Because now it's not very specific, but it's just the entire experience in general, not that well, which brings your momentum down, but you're consistent in showing up to practice. So you're going to show up on day 2 with the same mindset, but maybe a little bit diminished. And then, you know, you might have a better session, but then you get like a bad experience where like, oh man, I hit it like this. And then you just tell yourself, well, you know, it wasn't that good, because we weren't measuring like the success that we've had. And we didn't measure the very specific, like not that good, what that is really doing, right? So you can readjust and go forward from there. So,
Okay.
Does that make sense? Sorry, you were frozen for a little bit. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And I hope, you know, for everybody else, I hope I'll switch you. Thank you for sharing, Alexa.
Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful for everybody. You know, thank you, Alexa, for sharing. But coming into like, think about how you're practicing and like the intention, and do you have like specific things down? And our language a lot of times is one of the big things that helps us like get the clarity. Sometimes when we use language like, you know, I use Alexa just as an example, but I know in areas of my life, I catch myself using the same things, and I really don't realize it till later. Like a lot of times the way we speak, we don't even know the type of languages, and it takes coaches, takes friends, takes parents, takes, you know, peers to tell you like, oh, you know, you say that all the time. You know, I remember I had a coaching session with one of my coaches, one of my performance coaches a few years ago. And like, I didn't even realize I use the word try a lot. And, you know, he's like, you know, in our last 20 minutes of talking, you must have said try like 20 times. You want to try this, you want to try this. And it's like, it's no wonder you're not accomplishing anything because all you do is try. And I'm like, well, guess what I said next? Well, I'll try not to say try anymore, right? It becomes so much routine that I say over and over that I didn't even realize some of the language that is holding me back from seeing more clear stuff. Like, so even when we finish our practice sessions, we tend to judge ourselves as opposed to like the performance. And if you can separate yourself from the performance, then you'll get so much more clarity. A lot of times, even if it's good, right? Oh, it's so exciting. You know, like I'm so great, right? We judge ourselves as opposed to like judge the performance. Like, oh, I struck it super good today. So solid. The ball went high. It did what I wanted to do. I hit it low when I wanted to hit it low. You know, when I wanted to go 50 yards, it went like 52 yards. I got so close. Right, hit the flag 3 times, right? You're judging performance. When you judge performance, we don't take it internally. When I say like, ooh, I hit it, like I would say I hit it fat today, or I sliced today, or I snapped it today, or I hit it all over the club face, toe, heel, thin, right? It's easy to judge that performance. But when I say, you know, it's horrible today, right? I can't believe like it's like how did it go today? Oh, it's terrible, it's bad. Like that's a judging like our character and our identity, right? And the moment you start like judging your identity, like there's no ways to like boost back and come back out of that unless like you are highly trained in like shifting mindset that way. And just in language itself, right? Don't do your best not to judge like your or yourself. Always judge like your performance, right? Be the critic. Like if somebody else was looking in as a third party and saying like, this is how your day went, that is the type of advice that you need to be judging, because with that advice, you can shift it and move it in a different direction. So use your language, and then your language definitely helps create that clarity, builds that momentum as well. So thank you guys so much. Again, I truly appreciate your guys' time and you sticking with me and hanging out for the evening. You guys have a wonderful rest of the night, and we will see you guys all soon.